In the darkness before dawn, the sea looks peaceful, a narrow stretch of water between Iran and Oman. Calm, unassuming, but beneath lies the most dangerous corridor on Earth. Every hour, massive steel giants pass, carrying the fuel of modern civilization.
Crude oil, liquefied natural gas, industrial lifelines. This is the Strait of Hormuz.
A waterway so narrow it feels impossible, the global economy depends on it. And yet, it does, because true dominance doesn't belong to armies, tech giants, or banks. It belongs entirely to geography, to this hyper-fragile strip of blue water nestled between jagged desert coastlines. Imagine waking up tomorrow to a reality where 1/5 of the planet's energy supply vanishes instantly. Megacity lights flicker out, fuel stations run dry, factories freeze, and the global supply chain plunges into an absolute tailspin. This is not a Hollywood disaster movie. This is the terrifyingly vulnerable reality of this exact choke point. This single hyper-strategic gulf traps 8 nations inside a shared economic cage: Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman. Separating Iran from Oman's rugged Musandam Peninsula, this narrow gateway connects the oil-rich Persian Gulf directly to the Arabian Sea. At its absolute narrowest, the strait spans just 33 kilometers, but the physical reality for shipping is far tighter. The deep water channels guiding these supertankers are squeezed into just 2 restrictive lanes, one inbound, one outbound. Each lane is a mere 2 miles wide, separated by a tiny, 2-mile neutral buffer zone. This miniature marine highway acts as the unyielding spine of modern industrial civilization. If this single gateway closes, the global economy faces a catastrophic heart attack.
To appreciate how thin the line between stability and absolute paralysis is, look at the high-tension events unfolding right now.
In 2026, the region reached a dangerous boiling point, following intense airstrikes earlier this year, shattering global maritime security. In direct retaliation, strategic maneuvers triggered a terrifying, unprecedented partial closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The consequences were felt instantly, sending shockwaves through boardrooms from London to Tokyo. Commercial vessels, like the tanker Skylight, became high-profile casualties of direct strikes that froze maritime trade. Insurance rates didn't just increase, they exploded, experiencing a 4- to 6-fold surge overnight as underwriters scrambled to calculate the conflict zone risks. The water is now a high-risk matrix littered with mines and the constant threat of commando seizures. To keep trade moving, international coalitions launched protective convoys under Operation Project Freedom. Yet despite warship escorts, this partial blockade has gridlocked transit, leaving hundreds of cargo hulls stranded outside the Gulf. The true weight of this bottleneck falls heaviest on Asia, exposing a vulnerability so massive it could reshape global power. This tiny channel handles over 20 million barrels of crude daily, alongside 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas. For Far Eastern industrial powerhouses, this partial closure is an immediate, existential threat to societal survival. Consider the staggering data. Japan relies on this fragile passage for an astonishing 87% of its fossil energy imports. Every factory, bullet train, and household depends on ships safely navigating these tight lanes. For South Korea, dependence hovers at over 81%. Meanwhile, the economic engines of China and India swallow 44% of all petroleum exports flowing through the strait. If this artery remains restricted, the domino effect will be swift and historic. Manufacturing grids face mandatory halts, urban centers will lose baseline power, and a catastrophic price shock will instantly hit every consumer from Beijing to New York. But the true danger of the Hormuz gridlock stretches far beyond the gas pump. It triggers a profound disruption through commerce, transport, and agriculture. Because the strait is a geographic dead end, a blockade traps supertankers inside the Persian Gulf with no alternative route. As global energy supplies choke, maritime freight costs skyrocket, instantly escalating shipping expenses for every consumer good, from microchips to electronics. However, global agriculture is where this crisis turns deeply personal. The Persian Gulf is a major hub for essential fertilizers like urea and ammonia. As the strait chokes, global supplies plummet, forcing farmers worldwide, from American plains to Asian rice fields, to pay exorbitant prices just to nourish crops. Combined with hyperinflated energy costs, the mathematical result is inescapable. Food prices climb drastically on supermarket shelves worldwide. It is a textbook inflationary domino effect, proving a localized crisis in a desert gateway dictates the cost of the food on your kitchen table. Why can't superpowers simply step in, deploy their navies, and resolve this overnight? The answer lies in the brutal reality of geography and modern military mathematics. The extreme narrowness of the Strait of Hormuz makes a rapid military solution practically impossible. It creates a highly tactical stalemate where any aggressive move risks triggering a chain reaction of asymmetric warfare, surface-to-ship missile barrages, and widespread environmental devastation that could ruin the Gulf for decades. Because this system is fundamentally vulnerable, major economies are no longer content with managing the crisis through military escorts. They are frantically scrambling for permanent, structural alternatives. Relying on a single maritime throat for the global economy is a ticking economic time bomb. This urgent realization has shifted the geopolitical spotlight toward ambitious, continental trade alternatives that completely bypass the sea. Specifically, Iraq is emerging as a critical piece of the future global transit puzzle. Massive infrastructure corridors, including new overland high-speed rail lines and highway networks, are being accelerated to connect the Persian Gulf directly to European markets via Turkish trade hubs. This high-stakes standoff between Iran and Oman is no temporary blurb in the news cycle. If this partial blockade stretches into a multi-month reality, the world faces a global recession of historic proportions. Industrial output will contract, transport networks will fracture under uninsurable routes, and systemic inflation will permanently reshape daily life for billions. The crisis of 2026 makes one truth undeniably clear. Humanity can no longer stake its stability, food security, and industrial future on a single, fragile bottleneck. The Strait of Hormuz reveals a profound truth about our modern world. The more efficient our global systems become, the more vulnerable they are to disruption. We have built a multi-trillion-dollar economy on the assumption that critical pathways will always remain open. Yet beneath our digital lives and technological progress lies a fragile physical reality. A narrow stretch of water, barely visible on a world map, carries an outsized share of global stability. It is a powerful reminder that resilience matters as much as efficiency, and that sometimes the world's greatest risks are hidden in its smallest choke points. Diversification is no longer a theoretical economic strategy. It is a non-negotiable necessity for civilizational survival. Investing heavily in a resilient web of alternative overland rail routes, secondary maritime networks, and diversified energy structures is the only way to ensure a localized dispute never holds the global economy hostage again. The map of international trade must evolve, or we remain dangerously vulnerable to the next inevitable disruption. The global race to construct the definitive alternatives to this dangerous bottleneck has already begun behind closed doors. Stick around, because we are going to explore the radical new trade routes, massive continental rail networks, and mega engineering projects
designed to replace the Strait of Hormuz forever.